Well, welcome to the Followup podcast. My name is Hayden. I am the worship director here at Arbor Church, and today I'm joined by Alison, our community care pastor.
I did it wrong.
From my angle, it did not look like you were doing something great to the people watching.
I actually haven't been on for a while,
Yeah.
so I have lost my groove.
Your
but I'm
muscle
back.
memory is gone.
Yeah, I'm back.
And we have Bryan, our students director and our speaker from Sunday. So, yeah, thank you for waving to the audience, Bryan. That's very kind of you. If you guys weren't here on Sunday, it was probably intentional because you didn't want to talk to people in a circle. We started a new series called Circles. And actually, I think that we could probably spend a little bit of time there behind where the name came from, why we're doing what we're doing, and what we're kind of hoping for the 3 weeks that we find ourselves in this series. So,
Alison?
I was going to say, Alison should probably start out because this was her idea, and then we all kind of hopped on and planned it as a team, but this was Alison's.
I was catching up as a team.
Yeah. So, Alison, take it away.
Okay, well, what we were thinking, we looked at the ministry calendar in the spring, and we saw a thing called Easter that's next month. And we looked at, where are we now in relation to Easter?
Yeah.
And the guess, the feel, the sense was that we are probably as small and poor today as a church than we will ever be again. So this is the people that are here now with us are our core. It's our foundation. And if we could build a really strong foundation, then everything that follows on that will be built on something strong. And, we kind of talked out loud about how can you make your foundation or your core strong? And it's you can educate them, you could connect them together so that their bonds are strong, etc. Yeah. And we talked about, wouldn't it be fun to either do workshops or a conference or some type of something different to equip the people. And we ran through all sorts of roadblocks in our mind. We were like, dude, you've got childcare issues. You've got people's calendars are tight, etc. So
online aspect was a difficult thing to plan around too.
What was it?
Online aspect.
Oh yeah, doing everything online. It just seemed like we just hit many roadblocks. So then we started thinking, what if we optimize the time that they're already devoted to Arbor, which is 10 o'clock on Sunday morning? Let's use that as our conference equipping time. So we boiled down what would we want to have this core really solid on? And we thought, okay, it's going to be our mission, values, purpose of helping people find and follow Jesus in various spheres of influence in their life or various circles of their life. So that's kind of how we started. And, so far so good. We had our first kickoff day and we talked about the smallest sphere, the one that's in the very center, which is here at home. How can we help people find and follow Jesus here at Arbor Church? And next week we'll go to the circle that's outside of that and then to the larger circle outside of that. So we busted down the pews and we put in circle tables instead, and people got to interact together and get to know one another. We used old-fashioned name tags that say, hello, my name is Alison or whatever. And that
is your name.
That's a family name.
We made everybody wear that.
Alison, whatever.
It was a really good time to connect, and which that was one of our goals, to connect the people, get them talking and ideating. So it was great. It was really good.
I think one of the things that we all sensed since we've been, trying to recover from tough times in the past 2 years, is we've casted vision so many times and said, this is our mission, vision, goals, whatever. And I think all of us on staff kind of realized, like, we're doing this, we're making it abundantly clear what like God has told us the vision and mission of Arbor should be, but people, for the most part, aren't buying into it, right? There's some very, very faithful members of Arbor who are so behind that mission and vision, but let's say 80% of the church is just kind of apathetic towards what's next, right?
Yeah.
And
I think people might have a hard time actually knowing what our mission statement is, which is the people helping people find and follow Jesus. Because I think before, when we started, it was making disciples together, which is very big in our lobby, which is still an awesome saying.
Yeah.
But I think the people helping people find and follow Jesus, I don't think people truly know that's our mission. I think they can probably say something very similar to it, but not actually say the words. I'm excited for how many times we get to say it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But,
if this core can't get that in these 3 weeks, like, this is why we're doing it.
Pretty sure I said like 20 times.
Right.
Well, and I think that people have heard it. Maybe they can't recite it yet, but I imagine there's so many people who are like, I've heard this 4 times this year already. You know, I know what it is. But I think one of the things that I was hoping for coming into the series was, we've casted the vision, we've reiterated it, we've said it so many times, and that's not changing. The mission and vision isn't changing, but maybe how we accomplish that and what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis, that is up for discussion. And that's what we were kind of hoping for in these table discussions. Is we've always thought of people helping people find and follow Jesus looks like this, and hopefully someone who's sitting at that table says, but could it also look like this? And I think that's some of the beauty of having these roundtable conversations is, you put 77 people in a room in like an open forum, probably only 7 people are going to chat because they're the bold, outgoing ones, right? But when you kind of break everyone down into 7-person, 8-person groups, you don't really have the luxury to just check out and say, I'm not going to give my opinion or my thoughts on this. So I think there's going to be a lot of cool things that get discussed, and I think even cool things that us as staff are going to hear thoughts and opinions from people and be like, I had never heard that from Joe Schmo, our 5-year attender of Arbor. So, yeah. But
yeah, I'm excited for the new, the creative element here, because when you put all these minds and hearts in a room together and you give them something to ideate on, chances are this is going to be where amazing ministry ideas begin, right? Because somebody over the last 2 years in COVID, particularly, has been thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if a church ... Like, they're starting to be led by the Spirit, and it's just such a exciting time to welcome their voice. Although we've always welcomed ideas, we're being really intentional about saying, please, tell us what you think about this. You know, join us and partner with us.
Well, and like for myself, someone who sat at a table yesterday, it was cool to get to hear some more depth from people, right? Because a lot of times we just get the lobby talk and it's like, haha, sports joke, weather observation. But in this situation, like, I get to hear, you know, what is it that you're passionate about, or what is it that like you are seeing that I've never seen before? And you start to like really flesh out these people that were, like I just said, you know, sports joke, weather observation. That's all I know about Joe Schmo. So I think that's really cool, and I'm excited to see that grow over the next 2 weeks.
It's in our first week that a lot of great conversations happened. I think right after the service was done, I think a lot of people stuck around afterwards, and just hearing how many people enjoyed that. Actually, me giving the message and seeing how many people enjoyed that was insane. I think I said it to you guys this morning, let everybody know, like, I realized that people were craving this when I just came up there and said, hey, just introduce your name. hearing the conversations of people just introducing their names, I'm like, okay, I guess you were all craving to have your name.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
right?
But then it was like, were you craving to be known? Were you craving to know? Like, I would just, even in there, I'm like, why did that also bring so much excitement for people that it was just tell your name and this room just erupted in laughter.
Yeah.
And
well, some of them are laughing because they just pointed at their sticker and then sat back down. Because they're like, you already know what my name is.
Hello, my name is Allison.
Yeah, this is pretty trivial.
In which I knew that. I walking up stage, I already heard people introducing themselves, but I was like, there's going to be somebody who just sat down, just of one person who might already feel like they're behind. So I'm like, let's just get them all, everybody all on the same page. Who they are. And who knows, somebody could have wrote their name wrong on the sticker.
That's true. Yeah. Also, names are hard to pronounce sometimes.
Yeah.
So, great segue, Bryan. Let's talk about your topic, because Alison was the pioneer for this series, but you were the pioneer for starting it.
Yes.
So,
which is funny because I wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, we had Scott listed for this day
Yeah.
and to start the circle tables, and it was like 3 weeks ago, and you're like, actually, Brian should do this. I was like, wait, hold on. I don't even know what we're doing.
We figured out that it wasn't a hard topic, so we couldn't give it to Scott. If it was going to be hard,
it wasn't going to cause some angst.
Exactly.
Right.
We're like, this is actually pretty easy.
So this won't come with a lot of emails, so let's I think the staff can handle this.
Yeah, the staff
softballs. We'll keep the softballs ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
We also thought that Bryan would be perfect because he heads up so many serving teams here that if he couldn't ignite the people to jump on a tean, like
then I should probably let go of that. That team.
This is this big tryout.
Well,
Can you keep your job or not?
And I think part of the podcast is to go deeper and to spend time on stuff that we didn't really have time to do on a Sunday morning. And I think it's actually kind of cool for us to be able to peel the curtain back and talk about the change that we made like a week before the series started, where we were actually going to spend time talking about church home and your home. And we were going to talk about the church's Miracle Mile neighborhood and then your neighborhood. And that was something that was hard for us to say we're not going to talk about that, because that was something that we wanted to talk about it because we didn't want people just to be coming to church and then not being Christians outside of the church, right? Be a Christian here at church, at home, all of that being covered. And then we realized it's so much content to cover in 3 weeks to be able to really do either side of the coin well. And we just thought, let's do it here. And obviously we'll spend time talking about what does that look like when you go home or the other avenues of life. But Bryan, when we made that decision, were you already working on your sermon?
Yeah, when we changed it to just at that point, I knew at that time, if you guys remember, I was saying I want to do something like Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, where I can walk it backwards, where you saw something great and then go back to the very first time it was something they did in their home. Yeah, and so I was like, I want to do something like Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. As I was like working on this, I'm like, so why don't I just do Mary, Martha, and Lazarus?
Yeah.
Like, why am I?
What's something
what
like
is something
Mary,
like though? I felt like I was the girl saying to a guy, like, why can't I find a good guy? And the guy's like,
I'm right
in front of you. So I just felt like this. I'm like, so I probably should just do Mary, Martha.
Well, I think that speaks to the fact that you did good research on what to find, and God clearly wanted you to teach out of that passage, right? Because when we removed the actual nuclear family avenue of what we're talking about, it still worked, and it worked really well for what we were talking about, right? So let's talk about your week, Bryan. You there's so many talking points behind this series, like the fact that behind closed doors we refer to circles as also the Great Commission, right? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth. So you got to focus on Jerusalem to start things. Yep. And you mentioned that scripture, but the majority of your time talking was Mary, Martha, Lazarus. Yeah. What drew you to that passage?
So it wasn't as much as Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. I wanted to focus on like a city, village, or town that was being changed because of what people were doing in their homes. Yeah. So I was thinking like something like Paul's letters or something. Yeah. But as you guys remember, when you gave me that week, and I'm like, okay, now can you guys tell me what you're doing? Because
Yeah.
I wasn't here for the day that you guys planned this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, so catch me up. And as you're catching up, I just kept hearing dream, dream, dream. And I was like, and I started dreaming. I started thinking of like this big dream of what Arbor could be in the sanctuary, just around this church.
Yeah.
And then I realized like that dream was great, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
And so I started walking back, and I just even remember the time that when I first felt like God was calling me to be a pastor. I had so many dreams. I went on runs, and I was picturing myself preaching, and I was coming up with sermons while I was running. Like I couldn't wait for that day. But then I was like, okay, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
Like I can see me there, but how do I get there? And so when you guys were telling it to me, I'm like, that's what I want to do. Is I want people to dream, get this big picture.
Yeah.
But then how do we get there? And so I wanted to create a story where we saw the change that was happening in an area, and then we walk it back a little bit to say, okay, now how did that happen?
Yeah.
And then as we look there and then go, okay, but this wasn't even the start. Now it actually started just by Martha, Mary, and Lazarus saying, we accepting the call of serving Jesus and those who are listening to his teaching, just by saying yes to hosting in their home, which was also cool because for those of you who are like, how can I serve? I used to be at a church where we did, like, our whole focus was groups like we do here. And we always ask people to be groups, but we also ask people like, hey, maybe you don't want to lead a group, but would you mind hosting a group just in their home? And I always felt like that was weird. I'm like, why would somebody host a group but not teach the group or be that? It was until I was writing this sermon series where I'm like, that's what Martha did. She just hosted this. She didn't have to lead the group. She didn't have to teach anything in the group. All she had to do, all she felt called to do was host this group. And I was like, that's why churches ask also, would you be willing to host a group? And that hit me in that moment of another way somebody can serve. It's just like, man, I don't want to lead a group. I really don't want to be part of a group, but I can open my home up for a group. So and clean up after the group. So if somebody just has an easy way to lead. I was like,
Oh, it's a huge gift.
it is.
Oh, it's a huge.
I always ask that question, like, why would
so
somebody
huge.
do that? Totally get it now. Yeah.
And I think
I don't
one
know
of
if
the
that's the model they chose, but
I think one of the things about Sunday was it was so, I think it exceeded all of our expectations. And to peel back the curtain, I don't remember what day it was. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago that we sat in your office, Alison, you, me, and Bryan, because we are the speakers for this series. And I mean, we whiteboarded, and there was conflict.
And we illustrated,
Yeah.
as well, or doodled.
Yes. Bryan
Brought
doodled
that
a lot.
on. I still have it in.
Yeah.
I still have it in my office. I think Brian's big doodle board.
But I think what was so cool about that experience was we all had our intentions of what we thought should happen going into that meeting. And then we realized after we all chatted that we had different intentions, different goals, different ways of getting there. And I think many times it would have been just easier for us to say, all right, Alison, you plan it. Bryan, you plan it. Hayden, you plan it, whatever, right? Like this, we can't collaborate. We can't come to an agreement. But I think that we were doing in that office what people are doing on the Sunday mornings, right? Is we said, we all have very different ideas and we are trying to accomplish different things.
Yeah.
I think we got to a point where like, because you were like our script, you were writing a lot of things on the whiteboard. And then I just got up and I said, what is the most important thing that we need to get done with this? And then what are things that would be nice to get done? Because we all had those on our list, right? We were able to kind of agree on this is what we want to get done. And if we get these other things done, that's cool, right? And going into this Sunday, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And I think we sat back and realized, really, it's not a whole lot that we're doing. It's what God's doing and the people that show up, right? If they're willing to be game for this conversation. Yeah. And especially, we decided to start abstract and get more descript as we went on. And that was the most challenging thing for my group. The first time the questions flashed up, they're like, oh, this isn't a yes or no question. This is like kind of expansive and thinking. And I think that's what's cool.
Guys,
and vulnerable.
And I will tell you on the to branch off a little bit, because you guys are about to write it.
Yeah.
Questions was actually the most difficult thing to come up with.
Oh,
in this,
100%.
because I wanted to come up with questions that weren't way too simple, but not way too complicated to where people are trying to figure out what the question's asking the whole time rather than just answering the question, but also be very thought provoking at the same time.
And lead to the next
And-
section
yes.
or the finish.
Yes.
Well,
line.
and
it was actually quite difficult to
and
make
not
those
just
questions.
lead to the next section, but also none of us are trying to lead the witness, right? Like, here's what we want you to say, so let's write questions that get there, right? And that's not what we were going for.
But we didn't want them to jump ahead either,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. It's these. Yeah. This is by far one of the more challenging things that, I mean, I'll be a part of because it's the first time I'll be speaking at Arbor in any capacity. But like, just
long overdue.
but like the questions, I've thought about them for my week of like, man, I could just leave it super abstract for the first chunk and then get very descript. But at the same time, I have an outcome that I want, but that doesn't mean that's where we need to go, right? And how do you write questions? So I think you did a great job, Bryan.
Thank you.
And I read them and I'm like, I don't think I could have written them any better myself because it's very challenging.
It was challenging.
So,
Well, it's exercising for us. It's exercising a new muscle, which is usually when you message prep, you just have a intro, body, conclusion, and you do want to lead people somewhere, you know. But what Bryan has done and what we'll be doing is we're also handing off to the table leaders the facilitation of the discussion that hopefully, stays somewhat down the middle of where we're at, and to steward that time really well. And then we pick back up as speakers, we pick back up the content sharing and then hand it back to the table leaders again.
Well, and I think one of the cool outcomes from yesterday, I think where we would all agree is the measure of if this message was effective could have easily been determined by how many people signed up to serve, right? But I think what we heard stories in our staff meeting about were hearts actually getting changed and eyes opening up.
Yeah.
Because if we had 30 people that signed up for teams and in 6 months they're off, maybe you could say this series was somewhat effective, but the fact that you're hearing from people, like Bryan shared a story about somebody who has been here for a while, and this was the first time that they're like, I should really get involved and I should serve. And it's like, that's the heart change that we want, because that keeps the longevity of, okay, I'm doing this for the right reason versus, yeah, sure, I guess I'll sign up for the coffee team.
I mean, because I gave why I was a little nervous and didn't really want to accept the challenge of the circle was because I felt like I just gave a sermon like this with legs when I did the serving one. And I got like no response from that serving message. Like nothing. I was like, wow, I failed at that.
Yeah.
It's because you were too nice. Do you remember?
I was very nice.
And I was like, stop being so nice.
I was incredibly
You were like,
nice.
guys, if you
Use
just
your gifts. You've been given a gift.
Well, and
Use
you're
your
like,
gift.
some of you may be too stressed to serve, and we want to just serve you instead. And I was like, wow, you just like the whole wide world is stressed. Don't give
And we're
them
serving the world, Alison. That is our God. That is our call under the law of God.
I was like, don't give them an out.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, yeah, I'm too stressed.
But I think there's some. Go ahead, Bryan.
I will say Sunday though, it really felt like everybody was engaged. Like I made some terrible jokes that weren't funny. That they all laughed at. Really hard. Like my joke at the end, you guys remember I said, I was at a church where I went to something like this and they forced you.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that and shut the doors now. Everybody laughed at it. I'm like,
No, that was good.
I was up there going, wasn't that funny?
I think that was an awkward laugh of like, I
they
can't tell
really
if he's
shutting
being
the door?
serious. And then all the people are thinking in their head, is there locks on the door? I didn't remember seeing locks.
You know who I felt sorry for are the first-time visitors who
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
us at all, right? They wouldn't have known if you were serious or not. And here they are on, come and serve.
Well, I think that we'll have a lot of insights over the next 2 weeks and a lot of things to share. But I think that we go into any series planning and we're like, this is going to be the best series that Arbor's ever heard. Like every time it's like, this is what they need to
I
hear,
hope.
right? Yeah. And then over time, it's like, okay, this was probably like middle of the road, C plus B minus area.
On that note, can we as a staff next Monday go through all of the sermons that we have done in the past and just rank them?
Oh gosh.
That would be a fun podcast, but I think it would also be a little insulting.
Especially for grading each other.
Alison application was kind of on that one. So
I know.
Yeah, you got to ruin that one.
yeah. So,
Oh no.
but yeah, I'm excited for the next 2 weeks. I thought you did a great job opening, Bryan. We saw a lot of response. It was I said in the staff meeting on Monday that just felt like a different church.
It did.
It just felt and not like the way that we were doing things or the core was bad before. It just felt like, wow, these people have always been here and they've always wanted this, and it's kind of on us that we didn't think to do this sooner. And it
was like they were craving the community, but they
Mm-hmm.
needed our not
Yeah.
permission, but like
Mm-hmm.
us to make the route for how they can actually connect with each other.
Well, and also, I mean, I don't know how many times we talked about like, there's a good chance nobody shows up for this because it's uncomfortable, right?
Totally.
And
No,
then
I did an over and under with one of our volunteers. I'm like, what do you think the over under is? And I said over under 50.
Yeah.
And they were like, I think over. I'm like, I think over too, but I
Yeah.
think just a little bit
Yeah.
over 50. But no.
So and we had a great turnout, and I think that's more like egg on our face, right? Because we just thought, oh man, congregation.
Well, here's the thing, though. We'll find out this coming Sunday.
Yeah.
What our real response is.
Yeah.
But it's not a reflection on anything that I did or I said.
No, you're
Yeah,
you're
right.
fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just think if the introverts were like, wow, that was excruciating,
Yeah.
to sit at a table and talk with people,
I'd be-
they won't come back.
I would be shocked because I'm not kidding. When I went up after the second group discussions, because we did 3, I honestly I feel like I'm interrupting at this point. And everyone's like,
Stopping
sit
a
back
party.
down.
Yeah.
Get them off the stage. Like, I seriously went up there going, I feel like they're going to be mad now that
Yeah.
I'm interrupting.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so weird because I honestly approached Sunday like, this is going to be like pulling teeth, I think, trying to get them to answer questions. And no, it was.
Well, another fun aspect that I'm just going to throw out there. I mean, the teaching was super solid and great everything else. One factor that added was that it was our first Sunday with masks optional.
Yeah.
And through no planning of our own,
No.
because we have no connections to the governor's office and
Anymore.
those not anymore, at least.
Not anymore.
Excuse me, we want people to meet at our church. Could you?
Would
on
you be
this
willing to
day-
drop the statewide mask mandate for us?
on March 12th, not 13th? That's a little suspicious.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it was
Yeah.
our first time with people feeling more free to drop a mask and talk face to face, and it added kind of a different element.
Yeah.
I was going to say sweet, but for the people who kept masks on too, it was just sweet to interact.
Yeah.
It added a cool layer, I thought.
Well,
And
yeah.
if you can show grace to the staff, as if we come up to you on these Sundays and go, "Are you new?" and you're like, "No, I've been here for 2 years." If you can then do this for us, that would be great.
I'm okay getting embarrassed, but I asked Bryan yesterday. I was like, "Hey, who's that person in the circle? I don't think I've ever met them before." They knew, and then Bryan just looked at me and it was like, "This person's been coming for like the last 3 months, maybe longer, and you've talked to them multiple times." I'm like, there was no mask there, and that's not the image that I put together under the mask. So it was just shocking to me.
If Amanda is listening, she's gonna say that I planned this again. But the joke that I said was yesterday is, our minds did create what we think is underneath here.
Yeah.
And so now we've all realized that we catfished ourselves.
Yeah.
Our mind catfished us of what people look like.
Yeah.
I
So-
had somebody say something very similar.
Who
like,
took my joke?
Well, this is
no, they didn't use the catfish word,
Okay.
but that was
this is our 7th time recording the podcast because Bryan's been wanting to get the delivery just right on that joke. So I'm so thankful that we're wrapping up soon because, man, it's been a long recording. So Alison,
Like worship.
yeah,
Like worship
yeah.
rehearsal when COVID
Yeah,
started.
Exactly. Yep. Alison, do you want to
preview
plug anything for
preview of
next
coming
week?
attractions.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so some people come for the food. I'll just start
Yeah.
easy on that one.
Yeah.
Low hanging fruit. So this last week, the focus was helping people find and follow Jesus here in the home, your homies.
Yeah.
And so we had, for our snacks, we had homemade cookies. And so
Just
then
baked goods all around.
I
Yeah.
had way too many cookies.
And then this next week, we're going to be talking about the next circle out, which is Woodinville,
Yep.
and what we have been calling our Miracle Mile. It's the neighborhood. And so we're going to be pulling in snacks from the neighborhood.
Yep.
So I already have my eye on Woodinville Bagel Bakery.
Yes.
And so anyhow, we'll see what else we pull in.
Can you get garlic bagels just so this place should just smell like garlic?
I don't know if that's a service to the people or not without masks.
I'm an everything bagel guy. So
Are you?
Yeah.
You're what?
Everything bagel.
Really?
Yeah.
I am slowly becoming a fan of that.
Yeah.
Asiago or cheddar jalapeno.
Garlic and poppy is also my other.
Oh, the thing about poppy seed, though, it always gets in your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So I even had my caterer for my wedding eliminate anything with poppy seed because I didn't want to have people have black teeth.
Call.
You got married in California?
Yeah.
And you took out the state flower from your wedding?
I had weird hangups back then. I now realize that people actually could just not choose to eat the poppy seed and have white teeth.
But what's important is you noticed it and you changed.
That's the benefit of growing older.
When you know better,
you do
older
better.
and better. So
anyhow, bagels. Yep.
We're going to be talking about the neighborhood, helping people find and follow Jesus here in Woodinville.
Yep. I'm excited for that one because that kind of gets into these past 2 years, we've been really focused on the family. We've done things like the food bank. We've got involved with local things. But that's something that we've all noticed, hey, we need to be better about engaging Woodinville and the world. So these next 2 weeks, I think will be fun because I think people have they've voiced their opinions on how we should run church, but we haven't got to hear a lot of insight on
anybody do that.
We haven't heard as much insight on what should we be doing in the area. And I think that's going to be awesome to see people who have had people groups or causes in the area put on their hearts, and they've just been waiting for an opportunity to share about it. And I think that's one of the cool benefits of this series is this is also kind of like a data collection for us to hear what is person at that table interested in and what do they see as a need, because we're 5 people who feel like we have a pretty good idea, but we are very much aware that we have a lot of blind spots when it comes to the community and things that we should be doing. So
or not even blind spots, but also just like not the bandwidth to even think of the things that we could do.
Well, and the thing too is like we don't want to be a staff heavy church where it's like the staff is doing all the work. It's like God's equipped every single person here to like serve or follow in some capacity. So it's like, it's so exciting to think of everybody like stepping up and we get to help you do ministry.
Like we are probably the closest to the early churches than we've ever been at our barbers. As we said,
small and poor.
Yeah, small. We're very close to honestly the churches in Bethany.
Yeah.
Or maybe the church in Bethany.
That's a good way to look at it.
With Mary, Martha, and Lazarus.
Yeah.
And it's cliche and overstated, but I mean, collaboration truly makes things better, right? I mean, when it's just myself coming up with an idea and doing something, my scope is very narrow. And without collaboration, a lot of the things that we do here might not be as effective, and they might just feel like they're serving one special interest and not the needs. So I think as cliche and overstated that is, there's so much power and benefit to diversity of thinking and collaboration when we talk about what we're going to be doing. So,
yeah, hey, and if I could take a little bit of time, Alison, I wanted to ask you this.
Sorry, we're all out of time. I'm going to wrap up. Go ahead, Bryan. You just
Bryan, get back here.
That is on film. The audio listeners didn't see this, but Bryan hit his head on decorations. And
if their twinkly lights worked, maybe I would have seen that.
Exactly.
Don't sue.
But I've taught the the Lazarus being resurrected before.
Yeah.
But that is the first time I've actually noticed that it said that Jewish people came to comfort Martha and Mary from Jerusalem as their brother died. Did you ever notice that part before? Like the grief that they were encountering. So drew a crowd to come to Bethany for these two people because their brother was dying. And then when Jesus comes to resurrect Lazarus, those Jewish people then believed, put their faith in Jesus.
So it makes you think about his timing.
His complete timing. Because I always,
right.
I said on stage, I've always wondered, like, why did Jesus take that long? And then you get the, shortest English, not Greek verse in the Bible of Jesus wept. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you could have avoided all of this by just saying he will be healed, like you did with the daughter who was sick.
Well, and when I studied this last summer for Summer in the Cemetery, I had read that the prevailing Jewish belief at the time was that the soul was still with the body for a period of days, but because he was raised on like the fourth day, right?
Yes.
Was it the fourth day?
4 days.
So anything within the 3-day mark would have been seen as like almost waking up from a coma, that you weren't fully dead, you were mostly dead, but not fully dead. And so that timing also was to prove like this was an actual resurrection from the dead, not just a coma thing. But yeah, all the people who were able to witness that and have their lives changed as a result, to the degree that that's why the Romans had to start planning Jesus's crucifixion or death, because such a crowd was stirring after the Lazarus raising.
Yeah.
That people were that's when like the government got worried about this Jesus, or got more worried about the Jesus.
Yeah, and Bethany was so huge to the gospel, the message coming, that the story I started with was just Martha accepting the call to serve them again. And that was the start of it. It says 6 days before Passover, Martha served, Lazarus laid at the teaching of Jesus.
It was like the night before Palm Sunday, right?
6 days before Passover, Passover Sunday. So this was... No, it's Passover.
The night that Mary she wept and cleaned Jesus's feet was the night before Palm Sunday.
That's
possibly true.
Possibly true, because in one of the gospel accounts, when Palm Sunday happened, Jesus went to Jerusalem, and it says, and then he left for Bethany. So did he go from Bethany, Jerusalem, back to Bethany?
Or wait.
So I think Palm Sunday just happened. He went to Jerusalem, riding the donkey, saw everything. And
so did I get the night before mixed up? So is the night before Maundy Thursday? So it would have been the Wednesday of that week that they had dinner together.
It would be Wednesday? So I'm going to...
we're going to have to shoot this to the audience.
I'm going to show my biblical ignorance right now. Passover. Was that Saturday or Sunday?
So, or was it Friday night? Beginning of the Sabbath.
Would be Friday? Was Passover not on Sunday? Man,
No, Passover was not on Sunday.
So I'm going to wrap things up, and we can come back and give our conclusion next podcast. It was fun to watch. I got to call
Dr. Voorhees.
It was nice to see you guys' wheels turning like that.
I remember it was the night before something important, either night before Monday, Thursday, or night before Palm Sunday.
I was realizing as you guys were talking about it that it did not change anything that Bryan said. What was still interesting to talk about. And then I kept looking at the seconds tick by on a recording, and I'm like, we shouldn't be going anymore. So thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the Followup podcast, and I will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.